What happens when you're a idiot and wait forever before your review is due? Okay, I went off script, my bad. Nah, but seriously, what happens when a spineless loser of a main character has an infatuated psychotic girlfriend that murders everybody? Yeah, we can see where this is going? Great. It's not going well already, alright. Today we're going to be talking about Future Diary and Psycho-Pass. These anime were recommended to me by my contractor Kliatva. If you're new here, I participate in a Discord event where we get recommended all kinds of stuff to watch and enjoy. Details are in the description if you're interested. Now, before we continue, what you've all been waiting for, the amazing staff of the Anicord server. Of course, before I actually begin, spoiler warning, if you haven't seen either of these anime or one but not the other, there will be chapters in the video. I'm not gonna lie, the past two videos I have done very in-depth reviews on certain aspects of the anime I'm talking about, talking through what I enjoyed about it and maybe what I didn't, and then giving my rating at the end. Yeah, that's not happening here. Strap in, because I'm gonna be harsh with this anime. I'm just gonna tell you now, I did not enjoy it. There's a lot of jumping around and complaining, so yeah. You know how Yukiteru was dreaming of seeing the stars with his parents? Well, I was dreaming of getting this anime over with, holy mother of God. I'll admit, there are some times when I watch an anime and I'm late to the party, but this, I was early. I wish this party had never been thrown. I don't know why I'm here. First off, Yukiteru Amino is one of the worst main characters I've seen in a hot minute. Dude has the backbone of a gummy worm. He's stupid, super dependent on Yuno, and he's just miserable to watch when he's whining, which is 90% of the time. Like, brother, if you don't want to play the game, just break your phone. There's no obligation that you've got to stay in this. Yuno isn't necessarily as miserable to watch as she is enraging. She's invasive, psychotic, and very annoying to watch given how obsessed she is with Yukiteru. I've never really had a problem with anime where they tend to focus a little too much on main characters, but if there was going to be an anime I'd complain about with that specific complaint in mind, it'd be this one. Yuki and Yuno are just an awful duo, and their plot armor makes me want to bash my head into a wall. Surviving explosions, gunshots, and stab wounds, it's very obvious that either one of them was going to win. And I didn't really care who because I don't care about either of them, which loses me at the whole point of a free-for-all or Hunger Games style fight because we know one of the two will win pretty much as soon as the anime starts. Even Deus himself declares that Yukiteru will win, and that's quite literally all I needed to hear to lose interest. My biggest gripe is that while it's a free-for-all with 12 people, every fight is between Yukiteru, Yuno, and whoever is trying to kill either of them just for the plot to move along. If it were an actual 12-person battle royale, it wouldn't just be 10 people after 2, it'd be a little more split. We'd see more random fights between different characters, which I think would be a lot cooler to show off more of your cast, allowing viewers to see what the diaries and characters were capable of, and showing off their motivations and backstory in a little more depth. As far as the animation and art style, there's not much to speak about. It's pretty much run-of-the-mill and didn't exceed my expectations, which were already quite low. The first opening is actually not that bad. It showcases how gruesome and violent this anime gets, and honestly, I don't really have much more to say about the other openings or endings. Side characters were actually somewhat enjoyable, to name a few: Kurisu, Nishijima, Minane, Marco and I, Kosaka, and my goat Yomitsu Hirasaka. I don't know what this man was doing most of the time, but he was funny as These specific characters were actually enjoyable to watch and made the anime fun, albeit for a little bit, but none of these characters are in the anime enough to even come close to being a redeemable anime. I'll admit, this anime has a cool concept, but the execution is poor, and I think what really kills it for me is the main characters. Yukiteru and Yuno's love and relationship is excruciating to watch. You want to know what Yuno has? Psychosis. You want to know what Yukiteru has? Stockholm Syndrome. They both make no sense and should not be together. The biggest twist this anime tried to pull, and I say try because it didn't work, was when it was revealed that there were 3 bodies at Yuno's house. Yeah, I immediately knew that Yuno was the other variant and stuck with it the entire time and was proven right. It was not a shock because this anime was super weird. Jokes aside, this made me really uncomfortable. The sexualization of underage characters is very unnecessary, and unfortunately it's amplified a lot in this anime. I honestly don't know why they have so many scenes of nudity and even more uncomfortable stuff I'm just not going to get into. This anime has a very violent nature, and I am not a fan of it. I've seen anime with violence and gore and not really been bothered, but this anime is consistently inconsistent in the idea of, oh, last episode a terrorist bombed a school? Yeah, guess what? We're at a theme park now. Or, hey, you know that gruesome murder scene where some poor guy was mauled by some dogs. Let's go play around in the vicinity of that area. I'm sure f***ing around we won't find anything out. The immediate switches from violence to try to cut back to a slice of life feel are very weird and hard to keep track of. It just contributes that much more to the fever dream. I don't want to say I wasted my time watching this anime, but I am frustrated that when I spend my free time watching something I don't enjoy, it makes me dislike it even more, if that makes sense. I try not to be harsh with the anime I watch, but when I watch something where nothing really stands out and even the main characters are terrible to watch, yeah, I'm gonna get a little bit frustrated. I understand for its time, this anime was something new and fresh on the scene with the free-for-all concept and Yuno being a large part of its popularity, but man, I gotta say that doesn't do anything for anybody. Maybe if I were 13, I may have enjoyed this anime, but now that I've reached Unk status, this just ain't it for me. Some people may say this rating is harsh, and some may say it's not harsh enough, but to me, a 6 out of 10 is failing in a pretty harsh score compared to what I normally give. After going through that garbage fire of an anime, I needed something that reminded me why I do this, and this brings me to Psycho Pass. This anime has some of my favorite genres in it, with a cyberpunk-esque world, crime and mystery, and of course, suspense. Yeah, this was just a really fun watch. Now, I will admit I've only watched 25 episodes thus far, but this is one of those anime where the concept is so cool and the execution actually delivers. I've definitely said before that anime that gets me thinking are some of my personal favorites, and this anime is no exception. The atmosphere is immaculate, it feels lived in, and part of that is from Yugo Kanno's wonderful soundtrack. Shout out to my GOAT! Best known for his work in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 5. But the atmosphere especially capitalizes on how everybody interacts with their surroundings and with each other. It's just fantastic. What's also fantastic are the openings and endings. Of course, Abnormalized by TK from Rin Toshite Shigure is really good, but I actually found that the second opening by Nothing's Carved in Stone, called Out of Control, was my personal favorite. It feels like it encapsulates the anime so well. Production IG has such a stacked portfolio, so I wasn't surprised that Psycho Pass's production, including its style and animation, is solid and clean. It really captures that cyberpunk and dystopian feel so well. Earlier in the video, when talking about my future diary review, I mentioned that a weak cast can really affect how a viewer feels. They won't be as engaged if they don't care about who they're watching. I'm very happy to say Psycho Pass does not struggle with that problem at all. Akane is a very fun character to watch. She goes against the system's beliefs and genuinely wants to help people rather than resorting to force to get her way. It was nice to see a quiet, timid, and naive character turn into a fantastic detective who could solve problems in her own way instead of relying on the system entirely. Now, Masaoka is my favorite character. There's just something about a hardened, old-fashioned detective being thrown into this brand new world that's just so fun to watch. You see that while almost everyone on the force relies on Sybil for solving crimes, he's the first to say what his gut's feeling, and he's right pretty much 100% of the time. He has the experience to back it up. He was also never hesitant to use that experience to give the team some advice on how to proceed. By far one of the coolest characters in the anime, especially with how the man was throwing hands with Makishima at the end. Ginaza sort of picks up where his dad left off, which is some really cool character development, turning from a very unyielding inspector to a more compassionate enforcer. At first, we're brought to this really strict inspector who seems like he doesn't care for his enforcers, but it's sort of the opposite. He does care deeply for them, but he doesn't want to get attached because the next moment they could be gone. But that's what cost him with Masaoka. Especially what happened with Kogami, I completely understand where he was coming from, with more relying on the system to work through crimes rather than the old-fashioned way of trying to understand the criminal's motivations. The rest of the gang, including Kunizuka, Kagari, and Shion, don't get much screen time, so I can't really say all that much about them. I liked Kagari the most, but he had pretty much no backstory, and he was done insanely dirty. Of course, Kogami is the most fun character to watch. He's sharp, intuitive, and overall just great at his job. His and Makishima's rivalry is fantastic, and it was really fun watching their back and forth. Makishima is conniving, merciless, and brilliant, which is what makes him such a great villain. Not to mention, I can actually see a very valid argument on Makishima's side, aside from his very brutal tactics. The scenario of an all-seeing entity really puts into perspective that at some point, our world could be run exactly like Psycho Pass's is. A world where you aren't burdened with making your own decisions or being left with the regret of making the wrong or right decision. It's not yours to make, instead it's the machine's. But I believe that Makishima's side to this was that that's what makes us most human. The ability, the freedom to make your own choice and become the bearer of your own will, which you certainly don't have with an all-seeing entity overseeing everything. Don't get me wrong, there's so much in our world that's great to have automated and wonderful that we're speeding the process in some ways, but in others, the human touch is undeniably important in those roles. Take, for example, the most recent Amazon AI dub with Banana Fish, Vinland Saga, and No Game, No Life. There was no point to do so. It was greedy, it was selfish, it lacked character, and it devalued and disrespected those series. When instead they could have spent time and effort and made a fantastic English dub comprised of people who have a passion for what they do and would bring those characters to life, instead they chose the easy route, the way that lacked any real human passion or liveliness, and chose the option that was more logical in terms of their economic value. Not to get off track, but this is just one of the many ways this anime can really make you think, and unfortunately some of these themes aren't far from our reality. Overall, the progression of this anime is very solid. I'm definitely glad we got to see some fun crime-solving mysteries in the first couple of episodes, and then we really start to pick up when Makishima himself starts to get personally involved. That being said, one episode stands out from the others. It focuses solely on Konizuka, like 3 years before the present, and it's just a weak episode compared to the others and felt out of place. I do love the twist that psychopaths, or I guess I should say asymptomatic criminals' brains, are being used to power the very state of society that Japan lives in, which is completely insane. Or even the fact that they can each change brains, overtaking the chief, it's just a fun twist. Other than that, this series for now is very solid, and honestly, I have no other complaints. I thoroughly enjoyed this anime and its characters, but with all of that in mind, my rating for the first season of Psycho Pass is an 8.75 out of 10. If you have the time, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It'd really mean a lot. Of course, if you guys have any recommendations and want to hear me rant, let me know. Hope you enjoyed the video.